The state of Texas has spent more than $500 million a year trying to kill an animal it cannot kill. It has set traps the size of livestock pens. It has flown helicopters low over the brush with gunners hanging out the doors. It has poisoned bait, hired trappers, opened the season year-round, and put a warfare intoxicant on the shelf in 2024. And the feral hogs of Texas, 2.5 million of them more or less, are still here. Still rooting up the fields at night, still multiplying faster than anyone can shoot. But there is one thing in this state that kills them. Not the traps, not the rifles. Something that was here first, something the same ranchers have spent 100 years trying to wipe off the map, something you have been taught to see as vermin. Out past the fence line, where the sow builds a shallow nest in the tall grass and leaves her newborn piglets there to forage, biologists keep finding the evidence in a place nobody thinks to look, in the stomach of the coyote. So here's the question that hangs over all of it. Is the coyote quietly doing the thing that billions of dollars and a century of firepower could not do? Or is that just a story we tell ourselves, a comfortable story, so we do not have to admit that the war is already lost? Because the truth, the real truth, is stranger than either answer. And nobody, not the ranchers, not the agencies, not the scientists, can tell you for certain which one it is. To understand why that question matters, you have to understand what the hog actually is, not the animal. The problem: they did not evolve here. The first of them came ashore with Spanish expeditions in the 1500s, driven along as walking food by men who did not plan to stay. Hernando de Soto marched a herd of them across the American South almost 500 years ago, a living pantry on the hoof, and some of those pigs did what pigs do. They wandered off, they went wild, and for 400 years after that, they stayed a curiosity, a scattering of half-feral swine in the brush country that nobody paid much mind. Then two things happened at once. Wealthy men began importing European wild boar to hunt for sport, turning them loose on private land, where they bred with the feral domestic stock already out there and produced something tougher, smarter, and wilder than either parent. And the modern country filled in around all of it, with its year-round crops and its warm winters and its almost total absence of any predator large enough to matter. The animal had everything it needed and almost nothing to stop it. So in the span of a single human lifetime, the curiosity became an invasion. In 1982, there were roughly 2.4 million feral hogs in the United States, spread across 18 states. By 2016, there were an estimated 6.9 million across 35 states, and more than a third of every wild pig in America was living in Texas. As of 2019, out of every county in the state, only one, El Paso, out on the far dry edge, had no feral hogs at all. Everywhere else, they had arrived. The number you hear most often now is 2.6 million in Texas alone. It is a soft number. Nobody can truly count them because they move at night and breed in the brush, and no census was ever built for an animal like this. What the number really tells you is scale. They are on roughly 73% of the farms in the state, and by one Farm Bureau analysis this year, their numbers had climbed something like 40% in just 3 years. They cost money the way weather costs money. Estimates of the annual agricultural damage in Texas run anywhere from $119 million on the low end to more than $670 million in a single recent year, depending on who is counting and what they count. Corn torn out of the ground, pasture churned to mud, fences broken, ponds fouled, fields a farmer walks out into at dawn to find looking like it was shelled overnight. Across the whole country, the losses run past $1.5 billion every year, and Texas carries more than half of it. And the money is only the part you can see. A wild hog is also a walking reservoir for disease. They carry swine brucellosis, which can pass to people and to livestock. They carry pseudo-rabies, which can kill a rancher's dogs and cattle. And they are a standing threat to bring back things this country worked for decades to stamp out. Classical swine fever, African swine fever, foot and mouth disease. In one extreme scenario the researchers have modeled, a single reintroduction of foot and mouth into the American herd, carried and spread by wild pigs, could cost the agricultural economy something on the order of $21 billion and drive a share of small farmers off their land entirely. The hog is not just eating the corn, it is a loaded gun pointed at the whole system. You could kill hogs every day of your life and never see the number go down. And that is not a figure of speech. It is arithmetic. A feral sow can breed at 6 months old. She can produce 2 litters a year, sometimes more, with 4 to 6 piglets in a litter, sometimes more than that. Cut the food back and she has fewer. Leave the food alone and she has as many as the land will carry. Under the right conditions, a population of these animals can double in as little as 4 months. 4 months. You remove half of every hog in a county, and by the time the season turns, the country has quietly replaced them. This is the wall that every method runs into. The wildlife managers have done the math out loud, and it is brutal. To simply hold a feral hog population flat, not shrink it, not solve it, just keep it from growing, you would have to kill about 70% of every hog on the ground. Every single year, forever. Nobody does 70%. Look at what they have tried. There are corral traps now with gates you trigger from your phone, a camera watching a ring of bait until a whole sounder is inside, and then you tap the screen and the gate drops on all of them at once. There are helicopter hunting outfits that will fly you over the brush and let you shoot hogs from the air by the dozen. An entire tourism business grown up around a problem that will not go away. There are homeowners on the edge of the cities stringing electric fence to keep the hogs out of their yards. And in February of 2024, Texas legalized its first hog toxicant, a warfarin bait called kaput, for landowners willing to get a license and take on the risk. Because that is the catch with the poison. A hog that eats it may wander onto the neighbor's land to die, so you are supposed to warn everyone around you first and hope the thing dies where you can find it. And still, you get 20%, 30% on a good year, and the country shrugs and fills the gap. A farmer in Burleson County put it plainly last fall. You run the dogs, you push them off your place, and in 3 or 4 days they are back. They are always back. So the hog is not really a pest problem, it is a math problem. And human beings have been losing the math for 40 years, which is what makes the other animal in this story so strange. Because while we have been pouring money into a fight we cannot win, there has been a second animal out in the same brush the whole time. One we were also trying to kill. One we have hated for so long that the hatred has its own history. The coyote. It is native. It belongs here in a way the hog never will. The old people called it the song dog, and it has been part of the sound of this country for longer than there has been a country. And for as long as there have been ranches, there have been bounties on its head. It has been shot, trapped, poisoned, denned out, and gunned from the air. There is a federal predator control program that kills tens of thousands of coyotes across the United States every year, and has for decades, and it has not made a dent. If anything, it has done the opposite. Because the coyote does the same trick the hog does, only the coyote does it better. Kill enough of them in one place and the survivors respond. They breed earlier, they have bigger litters. More of the pups survive, because there is more food and more room to go around, and coyotes from the country next door drift in to fill the empty ground. You can pour a fortune into removing them and end up, a year later, with just as many coyotes as you started with, sometimes more. In the century that we have been trying hardest to erase this animal, it has expanded its range across almost the entire continent. It has walked into every major city in America. It is in the parks, it is in the cemeteries, it is on the edge of every town in Texas. And it is not going anywhere. 2 animals. Both impossible to eradicate. Both breeding back against everything we throw at them. And for most of the last century, we treated them as 2 separate wars. Then, somewhere in the brush country, somebody started to notice that the 2 wars were connected. That the animal we were trying so hard to kill might be the only thing keeping the animal we could not kill from being even worse. The idea did not come from nowhere. It came from the stomachs of dead coyotes, and it goes back further than you would think. In 1971, a wildlife biologist named Barrett went to work on a ranch in Northern California called Dye Creek, in country thick with wild pigs, and he did the unglamorous thing that answers these questions. He collected coyote scat. more than 1,000 samples of it, and he pulled each one apart to see what the coyotes had actually been eating. Feral hog turned up in 12.7% of them, and of all that pig material, 95% of it was piglet. Not grown boar, not tough old sow. The young, the soft, new, defenseless young. That single finding is the seed of everything that came after because it pointed at a real vulnerability in an animal that otherwise has almost none. A 400-pound sow with tusks is not something a 40-pound coyote picks a fight with. A sow protecting a litter is one of the most dangerous animals in the American brush, quick and enormous and willing, and she will kill a coyote that pushes too far. Once a piglet squeals, she comes, and she does not come to bluff. But a piglet in the first days of its life, alone in a nest of grass while its mother forages, that is a different equation entirely. And here is the behavior that turned a curiosity into a legend. Sows do not keep their newborns at their side around the clock. In the first week or two of life, the sow builds a low nest, a farrowing nest, out in the tall grass, and she leaves the piglets curled in it while she goes off to feed. She has to. And a coyote, patient, born to this ground, watching the same country its ancestors watched, learns the pattern. It learns to find the nest. It learns to wait for the sow to walk away. And then it takes what it came for. Some of the accounts describe coyotes working the problem together, the way they hunt so much else. One drawing the sow off, pulling her attention out and away, while another moves in fast and low and takes a piglet before she can turn. Whether every coyote does that or only the clever ones, the core of it is documented across study after study, from Taylor's work in the early 90s through Kamler in 2002, to Schrechengost on the Savannah River site in 2008. Different researchers, different states, decades apart, and the same finding underneath all of it. When a coyote eats a wild pig in North America, it is almost always eating the young. You can see why the story took hold. It is elegant. It is the kind of thing that feels true the moment you hear it. Every other method fails because it goes after the grown hog, the survivor, the hard target, the one that has already won. The coyote goes after the one stage of life where the hog is soft. It attacks the math itself. It goes after recruitment, the piglets that would have become next year's breeding sows before they ever get the chance to be counted. And so out in the ranching country, a piece of folk wisdom hardened into something like faith. The coyote is the rancher's friend. Kill your coyotes, the saying goes, and your hogs will explode. There are farmers in Texas who will tell you they have never once seen hogs move into a pasture where coyotes are howling at night. There are old-timers who stopped shooting coyotes on purpose, who decided the animal they had been raised to hate was worth more to them alive, standing between them and a problem they could not otherwise touch. One Schulenburg rancher wrote it out plainly a few years back. The single best reason not to kill a coyote, he said, is what it does to the hogs. For years, that was the answer. It was clean, it was hopeful, and it made a kind of sense that trapping and poison never could. The animal everyone wanted gone was secretly the only one that worked. It held for more than a decade. It got repeated in extension columns and hunting forums and passed hand to hand around the brush country like something everyone already knew. If this is the kind of story you came here for, the ones hiding in plain sight, out in the country most of us drive straight through without a second look, then think about subscribing. It is the simplest way to catch the next one when it drops, and there is always a next one out there. And I will be honest with you, because the story is about to turn, and it is going to turn hard. The answer that held for all those years, the clean and hopeful one, runs into a wall. And the wall is the same brutal arithmetic we started with. Because if the coyote were really doing what the legend says, if it were truly holding the hogs back, thinning the litters, attacking recruitment year after year across the whole state, then somewhere in all these decades the number should have moved. The hog population, or at least its growth, should have bent. Somewhere. Some county, some region, some line on some graph should have started to come down. It did not. The hogs are not collapsing. They are climbing. 2.6 million and rising. On to 73% of the farms and spreading toward the last few counties that do not have them yet. Up something like 40% in 3 years, by the Farm Bureau's own reckoning, in the exact same country where the coyotes have been eating piglets the entire time. If the coyote is winning our war for us, the enemy has not gotten the message. And when you go back to the science, past the folk wisdom, past the hopeful ranchers, and read what the biologists actually wrote, the story gets quieter and stranger still. Go back to Barrett, to that original finding at Dye Creek in 1971, the one that started all of it. Read past the 12.7%. Because Barrett looked at his own data, at all those scats full of piglet, and he did not conclude that the coyotes were controlling the pigs. A great deal of what he found was not fresh kill at all. It was carrion, mummified piglet hide, dead young the coyotes had scavenged off the ground rather than hunted down. And his own judgment, from the man who collected the evidence with his own hands, was that coyote predation was probably not a primary factor limiting the survival of the young pigs. The man who found the piglets in the stomachs did not believe the coyotes were the answer. And it gets worse for the legend. Remember Schrechengost on the Savannah River site in 2008, one of the studies that found wild pig in the coyote's diet? When those researchers looked at when the pig showed up in the scat, they found something that should stop you cold. The wild pig remains peaked during the times the site was running its own controlled programs. In other words, the coyotes were eating the most pig exactly when people were out there killing pigs and leaving the carcasses behind. That is not a predator controlling a population. That is a scavenger cleaning up after us. The evidence that looked like hunting may, in large part, have been the coyote quietly following the sound of our own gunfire and eating what we left on the ground, and the studies that came after keep landing in the same uneasy place. The wild pig biologists who have gathered all of this into one place will tell you flatly that the overall predatory impact of the coyote on wild pigs is unknown. Not proven small, not proven large, unknown. Nobody has measured it at the scale that would actually settle it. Worse, for the story, there are places where the two animals rose together, where the coyote population went up right alongside the wild pig population in the same country at the same time, which is the exact opposite of what the rancher's friend's story predicts. And in 2025, researchers back on that same Savannah River site tested another piece of the belief directly. They wanted to know whether all those hog carcasses left on the land by control programs were feeding the coyotes, propping up their numbers. Their answer was no. The pig carcasses did not measurably change how many coyotes were out there at all. The tidy picture, the one where the coyote sits above the hog and holds it down, does not even map onto the ground cleanly. In most of Texas, the coyote is not some middle link in a chain with a bigger predator above it. It is the top of the chain. The wolves that once would have kept it in check are gone, killed off a century ago, and the neat cascade the story wants, the one where you pull one animal out and another reliably falls, has a way of dissolving the moment anyone runs the careful, large-scale experiment. It has dissolved before in other systems, on other continents, with other predators, again and again. The clean version is almost always cleaner in the telling than it ever is in the dirt. So where does that leave us? It leaves us with an animal we know eats piglets, in a country where the piglets keep coming anyway, and a question that refuses to close. There are, in the end, 3 ways to read what is happening out in that brush at night. And this is the part I find genuinely hard to sit with, because not one of the 3 is comfortable. The first reading is the modest one. The coyote does help, a little. It does find the nests. It does take piglets that would otherwise have lived. It shaves something off the top of every generation, and in a given field, in a given year, that might be the difference between a bad hog problem and a worse one. But a little is not enough. Against an animal that can double its numbers in 4 months, shaving the edges is like bailing a sinking boat with a coffee cup. The coyote is real, its hunting is real, and it is simply hopelessly outmatched by the biology of the thing it is eating. It matters, and it does not matter, both at the same time. The second reading is darker, and it is about us more than the coyote. Maybe the rancher's friend story was never really about the hogs at all. Maybe it was about permission. We had already decided long ago how we felt about the coyote. We had already spent a century killing it, and hating it, and teaching our children to hate it. And then a comforting story arrived that let us feel fine about all of it, whichever way we leaned. If you wanted to keep killing coyotes, the story did not stop you, because the hogs were exploding anyway. If you wanted to stop, the story handed you a reason that sounded like science. Either way, It told us that nature was quietly fighting our war for us, so we did not have to look too hard at the fact that we are losing it. The legend may have survived all these years not because it was true, but because it was useful. Because it is easier to believe the land is healing itself than to admit the hogs are winning and we have no idea in the world how to stop them. And then there is the third reading, and it is the one that keeps me up at night. Maybe we simply do not know. Maybe the honest answer is the one the biologists keep writing down and nobody wants to hear, that the impact is unmeasured, that the experiment that would settle it has never been run, that the true weight of the coyote in this equation is a blank space in the science where a number should be. And here's why that blank space is not harmless. Because while it stays blank, we keep killing the coyote. Tens of thousands a year still, on the old assumption that it is nothing but a threat to livestock and game and worth a bullet on sight. We are erasing the one native predator that will reliably eat the invader we cannot beat, and we are doing it without ever having measured what it was actually worth to us. If the coyote is doing more than we think, we would never see it in the numbers until it was gone. We would only learn what it was holding back by removing it and standing in the gap, watching what comes through. That is the shape of the thing. Not a triumph, not a solution. A predator whose real work we have never once bothered to weigh, doing something out in the dark that we cannot quite see and cannot quite dismiss. In the middle of a war, we are already losing. If you have watched a coyote work a field at dusk, or found a nest torn out of the grass at the edge of your land, or you live in hog country yourself, and you have seen with your own eyes how these two animals share the same ground, I would like to hear it. Tell me where you are watching from and what you have seen out there. The comments on these are always better than the video, because here's what the people whose actual job it is to answer this will tell you, if you ask them honestly. They do not know either. They do not know the true predatory impact of the coyote on the feral hog. It has never been measured at the scale that would settle it. Nobody has taken two matched stretches of Texas brush, kept the coyotes on one and cleared them off the other, held everything else steady, food, weather, terrain, and then watched the hogs on both for long enough to see the difference come clear. The one experiment that would turn the legend into a fact, or kill it for good, has not been run. It is expensive. It is slow. It is tangled up by the plain fact that coyotes and hogs both flow across any fence line you try to draw between them. And so the question just sits there, out in the open, decade after decade, unanswered. What the managers do know is the part that offers no comfort at all. They know they are not winning. They know the 70% they would need is a number they will almost certainly never reach. They know the hogs are on more of the land every single year. And they know that out in that same country, the coyote is still being shot on sight, on an assumption nobody has ever actually tested, in the middle of a war where it might just possibly be the closest thing to an ally we have left. So go back out there, to the place we started, past the last fence, into the tall grass where the light is going. The sow is out foraging in the dusk, the way she has every evening of her life. Back in the nest she built this morning, her piglets are curled together in the flattened grass. Days old, warm, hidden, waiting for her to come back and feed them. Down in the corn, a sounder of grown hogs is moving through the rows the way they move through everything, taking what they want, leaving the ground torn open behind them, 2.5 million of them across a state that has thrown everything it has and watched them multiply anyway. And at the edge of the tree line, low to the ground, still, patient, born to this dirt in a way that nothing else in the scene can claim, the coyote has found the nest. It is not moving yet. It is doing the only thing it has ever really needed to do. The thing it was doing here before the roads had names, before the hogs came off the ships, before any of us arrived to decide it was vermin. It is watching the sow walk away. And it is waiting. If you like this video, YouTube also thinks you're going to like the one on your screen right now.